Juliette, I am so excited that you are here. Can you share who you are, what you do, and how you help people?
Hi, and thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be here. My name is Juliette Stapleton. I am an online visibility strategist, and I help coaches and experts, solopreneurs who have a personal brand led business build solid foundations for discoverability and impact online. And we are talking today about you know, how to become magnetic. And this is really, really important. I think I love that topic because this is what I stand for. And I'd love to first to discuss what magnetism is, because I think that we often look for the answer to it in wrong places. People come to me and they say, Juliette, how do you make your messaging magnetic? How do you make your messaging compelling? And they're trying to literally fit a square peg into a round hole.
Yeah.
And I was one of those people for a long time, because no matter how you learn, it's a skill, to write, to talk, it's a skill. And no matter how you mastered that skill, what you're saying, it could sound motivational, but it could still not be magnetic because you're actually trying to be something that you're not. But if you think about people who are mesmerizing, not just in business, but generally, actors, musicians, singers, dancers, when you're looking at someone who is just mesmerizing you to the point of, goosebumps in your body, people are usually so into and true to who they are in that moment, and this is what makes them magnetic. Actors really embodying the role that, so at the point, to the point that they believe who they are. You hear stories about method actors, not even communicating to anyone on set just to be in that space. Now, we don't have to go to those kind of levels of, I don't know, weird things, right?
Right.
Because all we have to do is be ourselves. And this is sometimes the hardest thing because people are saying, what do you mean, be myself? We don't feel like we are sometimes worth listening to. We might be very good at promoting something else, but the moment we have to be the face of that thing, that's where we feel like we're not good enough. And I think that this is the biggest problem, and this is the biggest block for personal magnetism, is when you don't, deep down, you don't believe that what you are, how you are, is actually okay to be. And in fact, more of it is what makes you that interesting person that attracts, that literally allows your light to shine. And we're trying to be someone we are not. In fact, I just started thinking about the very first video I've recorded for my online business. It was back in 2017, and I was wearing this blazer that was a beautiful color, but I never wear blazers. This is not something that I feel comfortable in. And I remember how awful I felt. Now, you would watch that video and you probably wouldn't notice, but you definitely would notice that I wasn't so, free. Things were not flowing. It was a little bit robotic and it felt so uncomfortable. So, of course, when I switched off the video, I felt awful. I never put that anywhere. That didn't even go anywhere because I wasn't true to who I was. And the process of being true to who you are, to going to that point is kind of very complicated, and I think it's very confusing for most people.
Yes.
So
I was
so
gonna,
this is where,
I'm
yeah.
sorry. I was gonna say, I'm glad that you're bringing all of this up because, you know, when people, eh, there is something that there's something that happens when we are online, especially if we're watching other people, people that we actually admire, and we might feel that we need to be like them or look like them or say things like them. And I think that's where a lot of us have gotten lost along the way. Like, I know this happened to me too. I thought I had to be serious, and, you know, I couldn't, I had to like chip away parts of myself so people would take me seriously,
Mm,
so I'm so glad that you're bringing this up because this could be why some people that are watching or listening to this right now are stuck. They're not really showing up as they are, who they are, in their most magnetic self, in the most authentic way. And Juliet, how does magnetic marketing, like in human design, and of course you can go into like with a little bit of help with human design, because I think the magnetism is like the most important thing in the human design. Helps you dig a little bit.
You know, if you like learning things about yourself, like I was always a personality test junkie. You know, I would take any personality test, and I still continue, even though I kind of found with human design system, I found a lot of very strategic simple explanation. And then as a marketing specialist, I see how human design gives you these basics for the brand, you know, because people really get confused. What is my brand? And they think it's all about the colors and, you know, all these kind of like fonts and other visual stuff. But actually your brand is your personality. It's a combination between how you perceive yourself and then how the world perceives you and how you energetically show up in that world. I love that you brought up just now about us trying to be like someone that we like. But if you think about it, that person is true to their energy, their, you know, let's use the word design as human design. And most often, whether they realize it or not, they're actually really true to their design and they show up in a certain way that fits that energetics. And so we receive it in a very positive way as well. And then the person becomes successful because they are magnetic. So what I love, and actually, I don't want to, if you never heard of human design, I know it's getting much more popular these days than it used to be when I started. But if you've never heard about human design, you don't need to jump into this big ocean without a shallow end because there's a lot of information. There's actually very simple basics that you can learn off and then practice. Human design is like a map. It's not a dogma. It's not a rule book, but it's a map to how to get somewhere in the most aligned way. So even if things are hard, you know, like hard work, that it's the hard that you feel good from, you know, it's that kind of like a satisfying feeling, successful feeling that you put an effort and that effort paid off. So it's something that's aligned with you, with your energetic signature. And as a gift today, and I know I'm jumping a little bit ahead, but I am going to give you a PDF of my best-selling, if I may say so myself, book that's called On Marketing and Human Design. And that will give you exactly the basics that you need. So if you never read another book about human design, it's fine because that should give you the understanding what we're dealing with, right? So even understanding your profiling by human design gives you a lot of aha moments. Oh, here's why. Okay, so I am a projector by human design. So my strategy is to, you know, show up and be visible and be available, however, not initiate. I need to be invited. That is not a very passive invitation waiting, you know, so you can do a lot of things, but I need to be invited into the very important events, into very important areas in my life. So my goal is to be visible and to shine my light. And then people come to me, ask for my guidance. You know, there's a certain way that I will run my business and I will use even how I outreach. You know, like cold outreach is just not going to work for me. And it never did, because before I pivoted into human design and marketing a few years ago, I was specializing in Facebook organic marketing. And the interesting thing about it was that I understood the system. I was working with clients. My clients did so well with cold outreach, some of them, and it never worked for me. And I couldn't understand why. I was feeling like a fraud, like an imposter. Why did it not work for me? Human design explained this. Energetically, me initiating is too, it just feels wrong on the receiving end. And that creates a different strategy. You know, how can you, this is your energetics, these things don't generally work. How can you either find the way to do these things in a different form, or maybe eliminate that from your business? Because you know what? You can build the business the way it suits you. And I think this is what we're not doing. And this is where we're also dampening our magnetism, because we're going too much for the shoulds. But who said that there is a matrix of running a business? We can only suggest, because certain things worked for this business, or maybe 1,000 of different businesses, right? They work along a certain scheme. They still have nuances. Every one has their own, you know, ways of, it's like I always give this analogy of a buffet table. If you came up to a buffet table, imagine all sorts of snacks, right? And you have a plate, and you can just go and pick up whatever appeals to you. And somebody can say, hey, listen, try this, and you have to use this dip. You just have to. But you look at this dip, and it's not your thing.
Yes.
You have a right to say no thank you, that doesn't feel good. I'm just going to take this without any dip, and I'm going to bring this collection of little snacks to my people and say this is awesome. I trust me, I felt like this is awesome. I think it's going to be great. That's what we do with our businesses. That's what, when we do that, that's when we feel good about, first of all, what we're doing, how we do it, and how we speak about, our areas of expertise or business or even sales. It becomes easier. It becomes, you understand that you have control. You know, you feel like you can, you can choose. I think this is what we're missing. This is what really kills the magnetism, is the lack of choice. You have to do things certain way just because somebody really bright and shiny did it certain way, right? But no, you don't. And so the human design is such a smart, because it's very strategic. It's not as flowery and philosophical. There's other very similar systems, or systems that were born from human design, that are very philosophical. It's about your personal development, about your contemplations. I am a very logical person. And in fact, I sat in my closet for a year before I announced to the world that I'm going to use human design, because I didn't want to be this woo-woo person, and I am a very strategic and left-brained kind of woman. So I want to make sense of things. And human design is such a wonderful system because it allows you to be you. I'll give you like a tangible example. In human design, we have such a thing as profiles, human design profiles. It's basically like a costume that you're wearing, but like anything, if you're dressing up, you might think, oh, I look so beautiful like this. But somebody else can say, you know what, that's just crazy. This is the way they perceive what you're wearing is slightly different to what you think that you're, projecting out there. And this is exactly what branding is, right? So we need to kind of align, understand how people perceive us, how we perceive. So my profile in human design it's 6 numbers, 6 lines, and we have 2 lines: our personality and our body. The personality is what we think. The body is what they see, right? We don't control the body, what it produces out there, but it's great to be aware what it is. With the 1-3 profile, it's very self-absorbed. It's a profile that's here to absorb life, to analyze it mentally. It's extremely mental process, and also to kind of bump into it with the body. The body is very physical, it's experiential. So you're literally experiencing everything. You're jumping into these rabbit holes, full-heartedly believe into something until you realize that, hey, there is no foundation there. There is just a smoke screen, because you're driven by the need to be secure, to know what's solid, what you can trust. And so people like me, they're here to tell others what doesn't work. And very often, when I talk about marketing, for example, I can say, well, you know what, most of it is a smokescreen. What you should do, here's 6 steps to make 6 figures. But that's not solid, because there is no proof it's going to work for everybody. It's just, it's just an idea. You can try, you can certainly try, but don't be, anticipate that it's not going to work, because you have to take this and evolve it into something that will fit you. And for that, you need to understand who you are and how you are. And in a way, I'm coming into people's worlds and shattering their illusions. Before, I felt really bad about myself, that I have this tendency of saying, no, this is wrong, this is, you delusional. I don't use these words when I speak to clients, for example, but in essence, this is what I did. And I felt really bad until I started understanding that there is a place and a role for someone like me, because most of people want to know what works. But in fact, if we don't understand what doesn't work, we don't have that data, then this is delusional. This is kind of naive. So people like me are coming in and talking about the cracks in the foundations, and this is my role. And knowing that gave me so much, I would even say, cockiness about my messaging, that I can share my opinion. And it's because I lived through it. that I have a very strong belief about something.
Yeah.
And maybe I lived through it by failing at this. I don't believe in failure as a terrible thing. I see it all as data, and I think that even, writing my book, I had a little bit of imposter syndrome because I am not an analyst. I'm not a human design analyst. I'm not a certified in this system person. I took what I needed. I had that plate, in the buffet, and I took what I thought that's important for people for using it practically in marketing. But I did have an imposter syndrome when I was writing a book. And then I looked at, there's this, woman sitting at the table with a
Yeah.
quill, this queen,
I love it.
and she's just thinking and she's sharing. And I thought, I'm just sharing my contemplations. So I called the book On Marketing and Human Design. And this is what I see. If you disagree with it, that's a disagreement in opinions,
Yeah.
so that gives me permission to share more of my opinions. And I think that this is what makes us magnetic. It's when we believe that what we're saying is valid and it's worth sharing because we stand by our stances, our opinions, our beliefs. And so this is where understanding your personality, understanding that it's okay, even though maybe in general it feels like, oh, self-absorbed is a bad word, it's a bad quality. Well, how can you take that word, that definition, and redefine it in
Yeah.
a way that feels good and use it and lean into it, do more of it? And that's what I think this is where the secret to magnetism in marketing is. That's why I'm so passionate about it. That's why I'm into human design. That's why I wrote a book and I'm here today.
Thank you, Juliet. Oh my goodness, this is so beautiful. And thank you, for sharing, for weaving in your journey to how you got here, because I'm sure a lot of people can relate. So can I. Um, you know, I'm I think the reason why we resonate with each other so much is that we're doing things that are aligned with our values, our personalities. And we don't have to do things a certain way. We don't have to try to fit ourselves into a box. This is like the way that I look at marketing, sales, how you do business, how you show up. It's just a creative expression of yourself. You are who you are in your being, and being comfortable and having the courage to present yourself as you are. Some people will line up with it. Some people won't, and that's fine. That's what I love is that there is an abundance of opportunity. There's an abundance of ways that you can do things, and it's just a matter of figuring out what's going to work best for you. So, Juliette, before we close out this segment, I want you to share where people can connect with you. I know you also put in some little Easter eggs about your book and where people can, get access to it. What would you like to share?
Yes, I think that, and this is why I did it because, as I said, just because you heard me talking about human design and probably, hopefully you got a little curious. It is a very, very complex system. It requires so much to learn. And the good news, you don't need to learn about it because even if you follow the basic, understanding of your energetical type, there is a certain strategy. Like I mentioned, I'm a projector. I need to wait for invitations. So, if I need to enter a big partnership, I need to make myself available. If I initiate that partnership, that might not go well for me because, this is not how energetically I can be in my full, power and purpose and, in the place where I'm meant to be as this guide. So this is what's interesting. And I put together all of this in the book and I'm going to give you a free PDF. Now, the book is available on Amazon. If you like a printed version, it's there and it's very affordable. But I'll give you the free PDF so you can just go and straight away start this journey. And it's very simple, julietstapleton.com/free book. That's the URL. Go ahead, download it. There'll be a few other little bits and bobs on the page as well when you download it. I have a little video for you to welcome. And I think that this is a best place to start. But the most important thing is, you're not for everyone, and not everyone is for you. And when we're talking about being magnetic, it's really only for those who are your people. And if they're not your people, it's irrelevant. They are irrelevant to your life, to your business, to your goal. And that also helps have this perspective to share and not think about people who will not get it or who will disagree. They're not your people. And you are free in sharing because you're not for everyone and not everyone is for you.
Love it. Oh my goodness. So for you who is watching or listening, look below this video, get that PDF. That is a great starting point. And of course, I will have Juliet's, social website, all the things so you can dive a little bit deeper and connect with her so she can help you on this journey, So, Juliette, thank you so much for all that you've shared. And I'd love for you to close out with final words of wisdom for the person who's a little skeptical about human design and doesn't see how it's going to fit into how they hit their next business goal, whether that's their next client, their first client, their next income ceiling, maybe a pivot. Like, how can you, I guess, plead your case to how this can definitely help them go in the right trajectory?
Got it. Yeah. You know what? If human design doesn't appeal to you, you don't have to.
I
You
love it.
just don't have to because, at the end of the day, to become magnetic, you need to understand what makes you magnetic. To understand what makes you magnetic, you need to really give yourself permission to be what you are naturally and stop pretending. We all pretend, we are trying to play the role, but people are not interested in the role. They're interested in you because most of the time when clients come to you, especially if you are a coach, expert, you're bringing not just selling information or products, but or services, even though all of that is still applicable. People work with people. Essentially, they're paying you so that they can have access to you. It's a very interesting concept to think about it because, I go to the same restaurant where I am looked after because I want to have access to this person who knows, what is regular for me. There is this whole thing about people connecting to people. And so if human design is not that kind of system, by the way, just a little disclaimer, a lot of people come to human design and then they kind of feel like, oh, not for me. And then 10 years later, they come back and just say this is the thing. There is a timing. So if you're not right now feeling attracted, that's fine. But maybe something else will help you. Maybe some other way of profiling. There's Enneagram, there is, Bazi astrology gives you like great, personality descriptions. Wherever you find it, go and find it because you will thank me later because this is the key. This is the key to you being you. And it's not about just the business. It's going to affect every area of your life. It's going to help you live in this flow. And even when things get tough, because, let's be realistic, life is night and day, up and down. We have these seasons in life. Even when it's tough, you're able to trust your journey. That's what systems like human design give you. So find yours. That's my final words for you.